my name is Cindy and welcome to my YouTube channel.
When you think of El Salvador, what do you think? I think of home and my people. I also think of the wonderful food like tamales, quesadillas, and the most popular, pupusas.
Being Salvadorian-American, I've had pupusas all my life, but I've never actually made any. So for today's video, I'm going to be making pupusas for the first time. So I'm going to be making cheese pupusas with curtido and salsa. And for reference, I'm going to be using the Pero Like Pupusas video, which will be linked down below. Okay, let's get started.
So first off, we're starting with the curtido. We're going to need repollo, which in English it's cabbage. We're not using lettuce, we're using cabbage. And remember that we're going to wash all of our vegetables before we use them. As you can see, I took the cabbage and I cut it in half. We're only going to be using one half. And I start cutting the cabbage into little shreds. I'm still new to this, so it's a little harder. And then, once I'm done cutting them all into shreds, I transfer them into the pan. So for my family, we use red onion for our curtidos. So I'm taking the onion and I'm cutting the ends out of it. And once I cut the ends, I cut the onion in half. And then I start cutting it into large strips. After that, then I start pulling apart the strips so they're individuals, and that's when I started tearing up a little bit. Next were the carrots. To save time, I recommend that you buy them already shredded from the store. I had to use carrots from home and use a grater to shred them. I know that, don't judge on my carrots, I had to wash them extremely well, even though they look that way. But if you have a better looking carrots, I recommend you use them. Once I'm done shredding them, then I transfer them into the pan. Once I transferred the vegetables onto the pan, I covered them with water. Then, on high heat, I let it boil. For the tomatoes, I used 5 tomatoes, and I cut them in quarters. Then I put half of the tomatoes into the blender and then blended them. Then I transferred them to the saucepan. I used a white onion for the salsa, so then I cut up the ends, cut it in half, and I only used half of the onion. I cut that half in half. Then I put some of the tomatoes and the onion into the blender. I blended them. Then I put the rest of the tomatoes into the blender and then blended that as well. I cut up some red and yellow peppers and blended them. And when I was done blending everything, I put everything in the saucepan and turned the heat up to high. For the salsa, I also put a little bit of olive oil and stirred all together. I checked the curtido and mixed it around just to make sure nothing sticks to the bottom. For the salsa, I added 5 cubes of consomme, or in English it's called
chicken bouillon.
Once the curtido is done boiling, I go and drain the water out. Once the water is drained, I return it back to the pan. To the curtido, I add 1 cup of white vinegar, 1 tablespoon of oregano, and I add some salt. Then I mix everything together. Once I mix everything together, I put the curtido in the container. I transfer the leftover juices into the container and put the curtido in the fridge. Once I saw that the salsa was boiling, I turned down the heat and I added salt. And then I tasted it on my hands just to see if it tasted right. Then I added a little bit of brown sugar, and some oregano. I really don't measure ingredients, maybe it's just a Hispanic thing. But then I stirred everything together, tasted it again, I turned off the heat and put the salsa aside. Now, the moment of truth, the moment you've all been waiting for. the pupusas. So I put the masa flour in the bowl. Gradually, I added water, mixing it together until the masa was like a doughy consistency. Then I grabbed a handful of masa, wet my hands, rolled the masa into a ball, then, with a clapping motion, I flattened the masa as much as I could. I made a pocket in the middle and added mozzarella cheese. Then I closed the sides and I rolled it back into a ball. I oiled my hands, and with the same clapping motion, I flattened the pupusa down and I tried to cover any cracks that there were. While making my first pupusa, I was heating up the skillet. What I did mess up on was not putting oil on the skillet when putting on my pupusas. Then I would put my pupusa on the skillet. I made around 10 pupusas. And here are the results. My very first pupusas. What do you think? And you can't forget to have a soda with your pupusa. Now it's time to eat. So what did I learn? I learned that I have to use less masa on the pupusas, and I need to practice the hand motion just to flatten the pupusas down a little bit more. And very important to oil the skillet every time I put a pupusa on the skillet. But overall, I think I did okay for my first time, and my family liked it. So if you're Salvadorian, comment down below if you make pupusas this way, or maybe you do it in a different way. Hope you like this video. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios!